So, the reason we're making this video is because I saw it pop up on the Canadian subreddit. It was a really interesting conversation that had a pretty split response, I think, in the comments section below. Now, this Reddit post has, 21% upvotes. It's at a 0 amount of karma, so it's quite evident that this post wasn't really all too welcome on the Canadian sub. But going through the comment section and seeing the amount of yeses versus seeing the amount of no's, it got me really intrigued as to this entire idea as a whole. So what I wanted to do was make a video about it, and I feel that today is the best day to go out there and make this video because yesterday we did have ourselves a pretty good update on one of the players involved in this discussion. So, this post was made on the Canadian subreddit by PriceGoat31, and it's pretty simple. Would you trade Cole Caufield for the second overall pick to draft Matvei Michkov? Now, yesterday Cole Caufield did not play for the Canadiens against the Ottawa Senators. I'm gonna be honest, they iced a pretty meh lineup, and it kinda was evident in the way that they were able to play. I mean, sure, Pitlick scoring nice 1T goals from Justin Barron saucer passes is nice, but I think yesterday's game was a lot more of a showcase for some of these Ottawa guys like DeBrincat, like, of course, Shane Pinto, who went out there and did really well as well. But for Cole Caufield, he did not play yesterday. However, the past few games that he has played, he has looked pretty good. Disallowed goals? Screw that. He goes out there and he scores goals anyway. He puts himself up on the score sheet. And when it comes to Cole Caufield, he will definitely be looking on expanding on the second half of the season he had last year, wherein he scored 22 of the 23 goals on the season, I believe. He only had like one goal under Ducharme. It was pretty bad. But last season, Cole Caufield was pretty good. This season, he's showing off pretty well in the preseason. He's still dangerous, still lethal, still growing too. He's only 21 years old, so there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to the future of Cole Caufield. But today we're asking the idea if you would trade him away for a draft pick, which would be second overall, to acquire Matvei Michkov. Now, if you've been following the prospects over the past few years, you kind of know who Michkov is already. He's a 2023 eligible guy, and he's likely going to go somewhere in the 2, maybe 3 or 4 range at the worst case scenario. More likely, though, he's probably going to go second overall behind Connor Bedard. A few days ago, I made a video talking about how Bedard is already a generational prospect, in my opinion, and how I was a lot more comfortable now calling him that. We also talked about how, hey, there's going to be a Why I Want video made about Bedard later on soon, and for Michkov, a lot of the same things can sort of be applied to him and his play. This is because for Matvei Michkov, as a 17-year-old, 5'10", 159-pound left-handed right-wing player, Michkov has been just so good the past few seasons in other parts of the hockey world. He was dubbed by the Olympics, I believe, as being the next Ovechkin. And you could see just the amount of production that he has had at lower levels of play. It's absolutely phenomenal. As a 15-year-old, he had 35 goals in 50 SKA 1946 St. Petersburg games in the MHL. He also had 12 goals in 7 games for Team Russia at the U18s, again, as a 15-year-old. The seasons after, he had a goal-a-game performance in SKA 1946 St. Petersburg. Also, he made Team Russia at the regular international stage. And because of all of the good that Matvei Michkov had been able to do, all the goals that he was able to score, the points, he's so good at firing pucks towards the goal. He probably has one of the best pure shooting abilities that we have seen in these drafts since Matthews, since maybe even going back to guys like Alexander Ovechkin. But for Matvei Michkov, there are a few problems. First off, his KHL stint, started out earlier last week, was not really all too great. He had 1 game played and 0 points. Now, that's not really all too bad when you acknowledge what happened in the game, because he was only played for 2 minutes of ice time in his KHL debut in the regular season. And so, because 2 minutes of ice time is kind of... yeah, that kind of sucks. They sent him back down to the VHL, which is the second-tier pro men's league in Russia. It's pretty much the AHL of Russia. And in 1 game for SKA Neva St. Petersburg, Michkov went out there and scored 2 goals. One of them, he collected a rebound out in front and easily just threw it over the goaltender. The other one, he found himself right in front of the goalie again, and he's able to dangle the guy out and put the biscuit in the basket. Michkov has been off to a pretty good start, all things considered, in his 2022-2023, and there's no real stopping this guy, really, when it comes to the talent. However, I did note that there are some negatives to his entire profile. The biggest one being that he's actually signed on to a KHL contract for the next few years, meaning that if he is taken second overall, he might not actually go to the NHL right away. We have seen other young Russian talents go out there and exhibit this same kind of thing. Vasily Podkolzin was one that comes to mind for me, because when he was drafted in 2019, he had a contract to stick around in the KHL for the next 2 seasons. And he said, yeah, I'm happy I was drafted by Vancouver, love the city, love the team and the organization, etc., but I gotta uphold my contract. I'm gonna stay in Russia. And that's what he did. The next 2 seasons, he had been up and down in different versions of SKA, St. Petersburg, etc., you know the drill with Podkolzin. But for Michkov, we might be able to see something similar. Even though this guy was going out there and challenging Connor Bedard for scoring titles at prior international tournaments, just kind of cementing himself in that sort of territory. And so, when it comes to the entire idea that asks the question if you would trade Cole Caufield to get that 2nd overall pick to get Michkov, what's your answer? Let's go over onto the comment section and see what some Canadiens fans on Reddit have to say. Oliver Allen says, no, I'd rather have a known commodity. Michkov is signed in Russia until 2026, and bets are off on when he'll come to North America. It pushes our window significantly. See, you have to prove loyalty to your players, and doing that, trading away Caufield for Michkov, would only prove the exact opposite. The next comment says, if Michkov is guaranteed to come over, then yes, I would trade Caufield to get this guy. More comments go out there and pretty much say no as well. Definitely not. There's no guarantee when Michkov comes to North America, and there's no guarantee that he'll be as good as people say he is. And for a question like this, it pretty much boils down to how much are you willing to risk what is not too certain. Because when it comes to ceiling, I think it's fair to say that Matvei Michkov could become, I don't know, just based off of how good he is already and how good he projects to being, I feel that it wouldn't be all too surprising that if one day Matvei Michkov, as a 23-year-old player, for example, had a 50-goal, 106-point season. He is supposed to be that good. But of course, nobody is that good until they actually get that amount of points. He's still only 17 years old, and heck, even Connor Bedard, you can't go out there and say for certain that Connor Bedard is going to be that. It's just a lot more likely to say that he'll be like that rather than anybody else in the draft. So for Michkov, it all boils down to how secure you are with the idea of waiting a little bit for him to come over to North America, how much you feel he's going to translate, and how good his skills are going to be, because let's face it, at every tournament he's played, every season he's had against players his own age and even older, he has been dominant. You don't get a goal-a-game performance in the MHL as a double underager without having some sort of talent. And it's just a question as to whether or not how confident you are in that talent progressing, because I think if Michkov pans out to even a fraction of what he's able to become, I think it's very fair to say that Michkov will be a better player than Caufield. It's just not all too guaranteed. There still is the possibility that Caufield becomes a consistent 40-goal guy that gets 80, 90 points every season too, but they're 2 talented goal scorers, and there's a reason why the comment section on this Reddit thread was so divided as to the yeses and the nos. There were a lot of people that downvoted it, though, which is kind of funny because it's yeah, no, we don't want to talk about trading Caufield. Why would we do that? But when it comes to a guy like Michkov, if you're going to trade a guy like Cole Caufield one day, this is the type of player you better get in return, because they're both pretty valuable in my opinion. So, ton of the comments your thoughts about this idea. Would you trade Caufield for Michkov? Would you rather have Michkov or Caufield? If you're a Canadiens fan, are you saying that you would rather have Caufield just because you're a Canadiens fan and you've already seen Caufield do what he's done? Or do you genuinely believe it would be more valuable to have a guy like Caufield than Michkov in your system for the long term because of the contract, because of the uncertainty of him coming over to North America, and the uncertainty with his development as well? Because you gotta remember, if a guy's in Russia, the team that drafts him in the National Hockey League does not really have any control over his development. They're just going to play him in Russia the way they want to play him, which in this case, his KHL tenure started out with a game where he only played 2 minutes, so not really great for Matvei Michkov. Maybe it'd be different if we were talking about Connor Bedard 1st overall instead of Michkov 2nd overall, but I think this was a pretty good conversation to bring up on the YouTube channel. So talk in the comments either way all your thoughts about this Michkov and Caufield thing. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.